The Premier has completed another one of her stints governing from regional Queensland. Anna Bligh spent 3 days in the state's northwest in the vast seat of Mount Isa, held by Labor's Betty Kiernan. It could be an interesting seat to watch. The LNP is still searching for a candidate, but Bob Katter's son will be running for his father's newly formed Australian Party. ABC political reporter Chris O'Brien travelled with the Premier this week. He was in Longreach when I spoke with him earlier. Chris, the Premier's done this a few times now.
That's right, Jess. This is number 5. Gladstone, Rockhampton, Cairns and Townsville previously. The Premier calls it governing from outside the southeast corner. Basically, she tries to combine her daily duties with a regional visit. It turns into, in effect, a prolonged regional visit. This one began on Wednesday in Georgetown. They call it the gateway to the Gulf. It's in the Etheridge Shire, which had some damage from Cyclone Yasi, which the Premier talked about.
There are 73 councils in Queensland and 57 of them have now received funding to start some of the reconstruction work. It reminds us of just how big this event was and how many parts of our state were touched by it, and what a big task it is to continue the reconstruction effort.
To have the commitment from Anna Bligh is just fantastic. We're still getting over the fact that Anna actually believes in rural Australia.
Well, I'm not sure whether that was a compliment or not, but Chris, the Mayor certainly made sure the Premier won't forget her visit to Georgetown in a hurry.
Jessica, he's a colourful character. He doesn't drive a ute, as you might think a remote mayor would. He drives a Porsche very, very quickly. He offered the Premier a lift to the airport. She probably thought that was going to be fine, but her adrenaline rate certainly hit the roof when he took off down the main street of Georgetown. Life's fast in Georgetown, Premier.
Life is very fast in Georgetown. It's not every regional mayor that drives a Porsche through town. He tells me he bought it on eBay.
Jess, from there it was on to Mount Isa and of course the usual round of meetings with locals, some announcements, money for the hospital, etc. Thursday, day 2, the Premier took off early for Burketown, about 40 minutes flight north.
And Chris, this part of the trip was about wild rivers?
It was indeed, Jess. Specifically, the Premier had a look at the work of the Wild Rivers Rangers who are working around Burketown in the Carpentaria area, the Carpentaria Land Council. She looked at the Nicholson River and she was pretty impressed with what she saw.
Chris, I guess part of the Premier's motivation for Wild Rivers being on her agenda was to try to counter this third attempt by Tony Abbott in the federal parliament to overturn these laws.
Indeed, it's a hot political issue. It has big support in Queensland at the government level, but it's opposed, as you say, by Tony Abbott federally. Noel Pearson, an Indigenous leader, is also pretty much against it, but Murrindoo Yanna is a big supporter of what the Premier is doing with Wild Rivers.
I know 100,000 of us Aboriginals love it. There's one Aboriginal in the Cape who doesn't love it. So, I mean, you can listen to him with the other 100,000 of us, but yeah. It's clearly an unbalanced scale. I've never heard any opposition other than from the one character.
And Chris, the last leg of the trip has been to Winton. What's happened there?
That's right, Jess. The Premier began day 3 in Mount Isa, but pretty quickly then it was on to Winton. And again, she met with the Mayor there. She opened the local health service headquarters, which has just been newly done up, and the ambulance headquarters as well. And she even went to the Outback Festival there in Winton, then on to Longreach.
So how useful are these trips, Chris?
Well, it's interesting because Campbell Newman, since he's become leader of the LNP, has done a lot of touring around the state. He's got to see a lot of regional areas. The Premier needs to do that as well. She has the advantage, of course, when she does these trips, she can actually do things. She can make announcements and spend money and so forth. That's the advantage of incumbency. So it is a political one as well. The Premier knows that she needs to win a lot of seats in the southeast corner. There's going to be pressure on her there and up and down the coast, so perhaps these seats won't be as politically sensitive, but it's a big state and premiers need to be seen out and about.
Chris O'Brien, thanks very much.
Thank you, Jess.